And good afternoon, one and all. We're live on 3 different platforms, so I've got very limited chance to see who's on and who's not, so please bear with me. In terms of running this today, if you have the ability to post any comments, please put any questions, just drop them in there as and when, and I will answer any questions. If I see them in the comments, I'll answer them as quickly as I can do. And otherwise, we can just make sure that everybody's muted. That would make the experience an awful lot nicer for all concerned. So I will crack straight in. Today's session, excuse me, is why being a salesperson, in inverted commas, is hurting your business and what to do about it. As you may have gathered, if you've been watching any of my social over the last few weeks, I feel passionate about the idea that selling as an industry, the sales industry, selling as a profession, has become broken, primarily because of the way that most salespeople are trained. Most people are taught, including me when I first started, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I should probably fill in the blanks a little bit on my background. I was born poor, smart, ambitious in, if I say so myself, in a part of Manchester in England where you wouldn't want to go without some friendly accompaniment. And I had no intention of getting into sales. My original plan was to be either a barrister, a lawyer, or a psychologist, because I'd read about them. They just sounded cool. I didn't know what they were or what was involved. They just sounded cool. When I went to my career as advisor at school, they told me that people from my background didn't get to do things like that, so I should look to something else. Motivational. I joined a freight forwarding company, and my first boss, bless him, a lovely chap called Nick Dempsey, came up to me one day and said, "Stephen, you speak in complete sentences. You should be in sales." How's that for a low bar to entry? And I did. I did okay. I went through all the training courses: feature, advantage, benefit, territory management, objection handling, 365 ways to close the sale, all the stuff. And there's one particular incident that pops into mind, but there were a number of incidents where I just sat in a meeting and none of it was working, and I felt panicked and like I wish the world would open up and swallow me, and honestly ashamed. Going home, driving on the motorway, rattling the steering wheel and screaming in stress and angst. Now, the thing is, if you do stupid stuff consistently with enough energy and passion, you might actually sometimes get lucky. And that's what happened to me for a few years. So I built a decent career. I ended up running EMEA for the third biggest sports company in the world. That's my territory ran from Iceland to Saudi Arabia, down to South Africa. And, that sounded sexy. And in hindsight, it was. Didn't feel it at the time, because talk about imposter syndrome. I'm sat in meetings with people knowing that I know nothing. And every time I'm trying to convince someone of something, I just feel awful about the entire process. I left there and set up my own consultancy and business, teaching people what I'd been taught. And that made me feel even worse about the whole thing, because I knew that there must be something better, but I had no idea what it was. But I'm still teaching conventional sales training, conventional communication skills, conventional presentation skills to people who deserved better, but they weren't getting it from me. So eventually I listened to a friend who recommended some resources, and I just kind of reached the point where I was so frustrated that it set me off on a mission, because I wasn't willing to live like that, and I didn't want anybody else to either, because I felt awful when I was selling. No matter whether I won or lost, I felt just terrible about the whole process, and I knew I couldn't be alone in that. So it set me off on a bit of a quest, and I went off and I did everything. I studied hypnosis with Paul McKenna. I studied NLP with John Grinder and Richard Bandler. Darren Brown and I were trained on the same courses. If you know who Darren is, on Channel 4 in the UK. Actually, he's got a couple of shows on Netflix now as well. He can't do training. I can't do card tricks. I went to cult weekends for a laugh. I coached and worked at events with Tony Robbins. I studied classical, organizational, clinical, and behavioral psychology at University of Manchester. I went off and did everything. But the main reason, all the reason I learned all that, was so that I could do the research project. And the research project was find people who were the best in their industry, the best salespeople, bar none, in their industry, where their close rate was above 85%. And there's actually a surprisingly large number of those people. They sound like unicorns. They're not. There's a lot of them out there. And what I did was spend actually probably 20 years, because I was doing other things at the same time. I spent 20 years looking at these people, going in their meetings, listening to their calls, and trying to identify what they did. And all the stuff I did around NLP, behavioral psychology, all of that learning that I took in was simply so that I could understand what they were doing, because they weren't doing objection handling. They weren't doing obvious closing techniques. There's no assumptive close or alternative close or, sharp angle close or pen close or any of that stuff. But they were closing 85% of the prospects they opened. So it drove me nuts until I finally worked out what they had in common. I worked out the common skills, the common approaches, the common techniques that made it all work, and threw out all the individual idiosyncratic stuff that related to their industry or their personality or whatever it might be. And then I started to use it. Then I started to teach it to my teams and get them to use it. And that all worked brilliantly. So then I started to teach it. And here we are. The results that we were getting were so different to the kind of results people were getting from conventional, classical sales training, that we just put guarantees in place. So if I do work for corporate clients, I guarantee that their sales are going to go up above the baseline within a certain time frame. And if they don't, everything's free. And that's not because I've got a big ego or big anything. It's simply because we've tested it, we've tried it, we've proven it, it works. So that's the basis for the rest of this thing. That's taken me a couple of minutes longer than I planned, but I'll crack on. So the three things I promised we'd look at are how to direct prospects' attention to where it actually matters, how to use something called pre-framing to ask better questions, or rather get better responses to the questions that you ask, because it's not about better questions, it's about better conversations. And lastly, and possibly most importantly for a lot of people who'll be watching this, is how to eliminate the need for that endless treadmill cycle of follow-ups. Oh, we spoke 3 months ago, I'm just following up, just seeing how you're doing. Oh, I'm just circling back. We've now got this entire dictionary full of euphemisms for making unnecessary calls. So I want to do those three things for you, and I'm going to do them in sequence because I wrote it so it kind of makes sense as a structure, as a syntax. Now, first of all, I'm going to do a bit of participation with you. So wherever you are at the moment, assuming that you're not driving in the car, in which case, shame on you, stop it. So wherever you are, have a look around you. Have a look around you and notice everything in your environment that is blue. everything you can find that's blue. Blue, 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 blue. Now, I suspect that you've found all the blue very quickly, and now you're finding things that are sort of grey and calling them blue because you want to feel successful, or even turquoise and calling that blue because what the heck? Okay? So you found all those things that are blue. Okay, now bear with me for a second. Just close your eyes just for a second. I'm not going to, your accomplice is going to steal your passwords or anything. Just close your eyes for a second. And with your eyes closed, just remember everything you can in your environment that's brown. Oh, Stephen, what are you doing to me? What? Brown? What? I didn't look for brown. That's kind of the point. If you go through your life, if you go through your situation looking for blue, you'll find it. You'll find blue everywhere. You'll generalize stuff that's not blue and call it blue because, what the heck. But if you go through life looking for brown, you'll find brown everywhere. You'll find big steaming buckets of brown wherever you look, because that's what you're programmed to do. Now, prospects, and this is a pro tip for everybody, prospects are people too. Customers are people too. Who would have thunk it? So whatever they focus on, there's this old expression, which is that whatever you focus on is what you get. That's not true, because I've spent a little while focusing on Monica Bellucci. Didn't happen, but such is life. It's not a question of what you focus on is what you get, but what you focus on determines what you think about and how you feel. It certainly did with my Monica Bellucci fixation, but that's a whole other subject. So what you focus on matters. If you focus on problems, if you focus on what I technically call, because of all my years of education, what I technically call stupid stuff, you get a stupid experience of the world. So if you ask yourself stupid questions like, oh, why can I never close deals? Or why does it always happen to me? And you ask that kind of question, your brain is nothing more than a sorting machine. So your brain will answer whatever question you ask it. And if you ask a stupid question often enough, why does it always happen to me? Why does it always happen to me? Why does it always happen to me? Eventually, your brain will go, you must deserve it. Oops. That's something you don't want going on in your psyche. So focus determines your experience of the world, and it has a massive impact on your emotions. And a combination of your emotions and your focus pretty much drives your actions. What are you thinking about? How are you feeling about it? That will create your actions. That will determine what you do. It applies to you. It applies to me. It applies to them. It applies to all your prospects. Whatever they're focusing on and whatever emotions they're feeling about that thing determine what they act, determines what they do. Now, the biggest problem that we have as salespeople is both of those things. We're awful at getting people to focus on the right things or focus on non-habitual things, because we've all got these habits. So we tend to just think about the same stuff in the same way all the time because we run on rails most of the time. Most of our life is pretty much automated. Okay? I can give you another quick demonstration. Just hold your hands about this far apart. Okay. I apologize if you saw this video the other day. I used to say 6 inches, but then I get everything from that to that. So about this far apart. Okay. And when I tell you to, just interlace your fingers and let your thumbs do what your thumbs do. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Now there's only 3 outcomes. Have a look, because you're probably not conscious of it. There's only 3 outcomes. Either your right thumb's on top, or your left thumb's on top, or you're a weirdo and you've got them side by side pointing at me like some kind of dagger. Okay. Now, I used to have this whole shtick about, if your right thumb's on top, it's because you're logical and rational and you're better with numbers and you'll tend to make more money over your career. If your left thumb's on top, you're empathetic, you're more emotionally intelligent, you're a better lover. It doesn't mean anything. It has no meaning that I've ever been able to work out. It's got nothing to do with right-handed or left-handed. It's got nothing to do with dominant or submissive hand. It's got nothing like that. It's just thumb. But try this. Put the other thumb on top. whichever thumb was there, put the other thumb on top. And I bet that for most of you, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel a bit sick, a bit wrong. That's because that's the evil thumb. That's not the good thumb. That's the evil thumb. It's bad, it's sick, it's wrong. Okay. I could give you dozens of demonstrations of that. Like, which arm goes on top? Try that. Have a look, see which it is. And then if you can, because most people can't, put the other thumb on top. Put the other arm on top. And that is truly weird. And there's always a percentage of people who are going like, my arms don't work. Why don't my arms work? Habit. It's not anything to do with survival. It's nothing to do with your ability to attract a great mate and procreate. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's just, that's what you're comfortable with. It's just a habit. But that habit is stuck. Now, if you're prone to having a habit for anything, and you have habits for everything. You have habits for how you start the car. You have habits for what you do in the bathroom with your teeth in the morning. You've got routines for pretty much everything. Psychologists, we call them behavioral or judgmental heuristics. What that means is nothing more than little mental shortcuts. We use these little mental shortcuts to simplify our life, because human beings are pretty simple creatures. We can only focus on between 5 and 9 things at any given time. Forget anything you've read about women being better at multitasking. There's no evidence for it. It's just, there's a limit to what we can do. Yeah? I think 7 or 9 is a massive overestimate. Most people I find can focus on 3 or 4 things effectively. So the idea of multitasking, it just means that you're doing lots of things poorly. So we develop these heuristics. You ever walked up to a door and pushed it and it didn't open, so you pushed it, and it didn't open, so you pushed it really hard, and then you rattled it and it still didn't open, and then, and only then, did you see the big sign at eye level saying pull? That's not just me, is it? That's not just me. We've all got these habits. The way that works is the last 4 or 5 doors you went to, you pushed them and they opened. So the next door, you push it, and you'll only try something different or notice the big sign when the heuristic, the habit, stops working. Now, think about your prospects for a second. That's not a bad philosophy in life anyway, to be honest, but think about your prospects for a second. How many of your competitors do they speak to? And how many of them do they say, no thanks to? Vast majority. If they're used to saying no thanks to people who are trying to sell them things, what do you think will happen? It becomes a heuristic, it becomes a habit, it becomes autopilot, which is why even when your proposition is better, your pricing is better, your product is better, their existing supplier is awful, even when everything is playing in your favor, you still can't get them to change, because change is uncomfortable. Change is weird. We don't like change because change is dangerous. What I'm doing now might suck, but it hasn't put me out of business. So I'll stick with it. I used to do a lot of work with commercial insurance brokers, and I've seen situations where people, I mean, the worst one I ever saw was 50% of their claims were not being paid. The ones that were being paid incredibly slowly, and a good part of their vehicle fleet had gone on for 9 months uninsured because their insurance broker just hadn't done the paperwork properly. And it still took the devil's own job to chivvy them out of sticking with that existing broker who was very nearly, well, I mean, potentially could have put them out of business. But they still stuck with them for 2 different renewal cycles because, well, you know, better the devil you know. We've all been there. We've all seen it. Okay? And being a salesperson makes it even worse. So I'm going to make a massive generalization here. Almost nobody likes salespeople. Almost nobody likes being sold to. If you remember back when retail stores were a thing in a shop, in a street, or in a shopping arcade, a mall, back when we went places to buy things, okay? Have you ever had the situation where you know what you want? You've gone in deliberately to buy something. Maybe you're going to try it on, and if it fits and if it's nice, you're going to buy it. If the price is right, you'll buy it. You've gone in there deliberately looking for something, and the shop assistant comes up to you and says, "Can I help you?" What's the first thing you say? The very first thing is, "No, thanks. I'm just looking." Oh, you liar! You liar! This poor person's just trying to make a living, and you just fibbed to them. Okay? Because we don't want to be sold to. Because buying is risky behavior. It might go wrong. We might get ripped off. We might look stupid. We may, if it's a business situation, we might lose our job. We might get demoted. Because choosing a new supplier, choosing to do something different, has an inherent risk attached to it. And most people are resistant to that. And secondly, think about that word. If I say salespeople, I get a slightly negative reaction. If I say salesman, 9 times out of 10, I get something like a phobic reaction from people. It's like I've put a crucifix in front of a vampire. It's like, no, not bad. It's just this inherent, we just despise and hate salespeople. Why do we despise and hate salespeople so much? Is it because the profession's evil? Is it because persuading people to do new things is bad and sick and wrong? No, it's because most salespeople create resistance because of the way they behave. The more you behave like a salesperson, the more you behave like everybody else does, the more your prospects behave like prospects. And the more you push them, the more they push back. The more you try and pull them into doing a deal with you, the more they resist. That's just basic psychology. Think about the world you see on movies and that sort of stuff. Show me the movie where the salesperson is the hero. And Wolf of Wall Street doesn't count because that isn't meant to be a motivational video. It's a dire warning. All the classic movies that people use with salespeople, Glengarry Glen Ross, con men. Wall Street, con men. Wolf of Wall Street, con men. Prime Gig, con men. Boiler Room, con men. Pretty much all the stuff that we see in the media, all the stuff we read in the media, is salespeople conning people, ripping them off. All the consumer rights programs, all the programs about scammers, it's always somebody selling you something you don't want, don't need, that doesn't work, and you can't get your money back. And that is what we're, as a profession, pushing against. But we can't push against it because that's what makes it happen in the first place. And the reason it's come that way is purely history. Everything that people generally taught about sales, open questions, objection handling, 365 ways to close the sale, all of that stuff was invented by trial and error back in the middle of the last century. God, I feel old saying that. Back in the middle of the last century, by people going door to door or selling insurance, business to business. Most of it was developed for the fuller brush salesman. I use that term deliberate, salesman. Yeah, it was just pure trial and error. It was invented back when Sigmund Freud was regarded as state-of-the-art psychology, rather than him being known in the profession as sick man fraud. It's come from nowhere. It's got no basis in the way psychology and influence actually works. But we still teach it. Well, why do we teach it? This is going to sound really cynical. It's easy to teach. It's not that it works. But it's easier to teach someone to handle objections rather than teaching them how to not create objections in the first place. It's easier to teach someone to pitch than it is to teach them to identify problems. So that's how we end up where we are. Okay. And if our customers focus on us being salespeople, we're already there in the big steaming bucket of brown stuff. Because if we're a salesperson, we're associated with all of the negative associations and connotations that go with that word and that industry and that expectation. And if we then behave like a salesperson, we just reinforce it. And they're resistant to start with, and they just become more so. It's just self-perpetuating. It's dumb. And the great thing about when you're banging your head against a brick wall is when you stop. So let's do that, shall we? So focus is how we control what people are thinking about. And focus is how we control what they feel. Now, control is a bit of a loaded word. I might be better saying influence, but I'll use the word control because we all know what we mean. Okay? Now, most people use it in a slightly wrong way. Okay? So the focus from a prospect perspective is all about them. It's what matters to them. And what matters to them are their problems and their desires. So I use a framework which I was using before this became slightly, okay, but I use the term IED, okay, not in the negative kind of oops, Iraq sense, but identify, expand, and deliver. Identify people's problems that they haven't resolved yet. Identify the problems that they haven't really appreciated the scale of, like my insurance broker. They knew they were getting paid slowly. They knew that half their claims were being disallowed, but they just got used to it. It wasn't until they thought about it, they thought, yeah, it can't be right, can it? Yeah. Identify the core problem. As really great salespeople are superb at identifying the underlying problem. Not the first thing somebody says, but the actual issue. Then we expand it. So the more somebody focuses on the problem, the more they are concerned about it or frustrated about it or stressed about it or wound up about it. Because the more you focus on something, if it's a problem, the worse it feels. So we expand on it. Equally, if we're talking about a desire they haven't found a way of fulfilling yet, the more they focus on what they want and why they want it and how they want it and what a difference it will make to them, we expand on it, they focus on it, they talk about it, they want it more. And then the key thing, having identified the problem, having identified the unmet desire, we have to expand it, and then we deliver, which is we show them how to make the problem go away. We show them how to get what they really want. And that delivery will very, very rarely be your feature advantage benefit pre-prepared slide deck. It will almost never be your pre-packaged pitch, because unless you are incredibly talented with the psychic skills, or unless your industry only has a very small number of issues, each person's challenges are going to be slightly different. Each person's desires are going to be different. So your delivery of the solution, your delivery of the desire is going to be tailored. So every step of that is the precise opposite of your conventional walk in, tell them what you do, go for the deal. When they don't go for it, handle the objection. It's a shift. Okay? Now, that's fairly, what's the term? Basic. Okay, I accept that. So let's go deeper now. Let's look at a little bit more of how we do it. Because I said that I'd teach you about pre-framing. Now, the way questions work is not the way most people think they work. Most people think question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. That's not a conversation. That's an interrogation. And I promise you, that's a different thing entirely. Yeah. So if it's question, answer, I've seen people walk in with checklists where they've got a list of 15 or 20 open questions that they plan to ask, and they literally take them, oh, for goodness sake, would you just stop it? Okay. I've seen people do that now because they've AI generated the flipping checklist. It's like, oh, they don't call it a checklist. They call it a customer health check. They call it a customer review. They call it a whatever. It's a checklist of open questions. Call it what you like. Call it Fred, Dick, Jane, or Spot. It's a flipping checklist, and it's dumb. It's impolite, and it's being a salesperson. Stop it. A conversation is different. A conversation is where I ask you a question and you answer it. And then instead of asking you another question, instead of changing the topic or going sideways, I ask you a bit more about what you said. Because as soon as you've given me your opinion, as soon as you tell me what's going on with you, you are at that point the least receptive to anything I might say that you're ever going to be. When you say something, when you tell me your opinion, when you tell me your fact, you want to discuss it. You want to know what I think about it. You want to have a conversation about it. You want to explore it. You want to have, a conversation. Because a conversation goes through 4 different phases. I used to draw it as a flat circle. It's actually not. It's a spiral. Okay. And that process is SQRF. Setup, question, response or answer, and follow-up. So the setup is what comes before the question that makes it work. The question is how, what, why, where, when, who, standard conventional stuff. Their answer, their response is whatever the hell it is. Okay. And the follow-up is when you dig in and you pull out more information and more of their views and more of their history and more of their reasons behind what they said. Okay. And the 2 most important parts of that process are obviously their answer and not so much the follow-up. The follow-up is relatively easy once you focus on them instead of you. The really key one is the setup. Okay. The setup is what comes before the question, and it's what makes the question work. So, if I were just to say to you something, I don't know, what's your favorite fish? What fish? What fish? Tuna? I don't know. Fish? Alive? Dead? To eat? What do you mean? It just makes no sense. But that's what we, as salespeople, have been trained to do. It's an open question. What is your favorite fish? How? What? Why? Where? When? Who? So that must be good. No, it's stupid. It's rude, and it sounds odd. Another example, let's say I'm talking to a friend and the question I'm going to ask is, what was the name of the guy behind the bar at the Hard Rock in Ibiza? Now, if I just ask that question, my friend might answer it. He might go, yeah, it was Stelios or whatever it might have been, because he just happened to be on the same wavelength at the same time. But more realistically, if in conversation just between 2 friends, I'll do something like this. Hey, do you remember when we were in Ibiza, we were at the Hard Rock? We used to go to that bar up on the roof. There was the female DJ over there, and then there was the bar. There was that guy at the bar who always used to do the used to look at you weird because you wanted ice with the vodka. Yeah. What was his name? Boom. Because I've taken you back to the situation before I ask you about the situation. It's like asking you to read a chapter of a book before I ask you to summarize the chapter of the book. So I put you back into the context. That's the setup. Now, a pre-frame is where you do something much more powerful. A pre-frame is where you get them to focus on a particular topic or a particular aspect in as much detail as possible before you ask them about the topic. So going back to my commercial insurance broking client, the a pre-frame phrase, not the only one, but the one I tend to use most, is thinking about your claims and the way they get handled, and what kind of proportion get disqualified, and how quickly the claims get processed. The whole process of making a claim and getting the claim paid out and dealing with any issues in that process. How would you say that's going? Now, I didn't just say, how are your claims handling going? Because the answer to that will almost always be fine, which stands for feelings inside not expressed. But thinking about, and I do this whole scenario, I paint the whole process and allow you to see it, to focus on it in as much glorious technical a detail as possible before I ask you a question about it. So, thinking about the kind of sales results you're getting, the kind of prospects that you're closing as customers, the deals you're doing, the deals you're not doing, the number of times you have to discount, or, your ability to close deals in the first meeting, just thinking about all that kind of stuff. What would you say could be a little bit better? Boom. I've no idea what answer popped into your head, because this isn't a two-way session, but I guarantee something popped into your head because of the pre-frame that I gave to it. Pro tip, it is functionally, practically impossible to have too long a pre-frame setup. The longer that setup is, the more effective it is. I learned that the easy way, the hard way. The first time I met Richard Bandler, who is one of the co-founders, one of the co-developers of NLP, and Richard walked on stage, started talking to people, and he talked to people, and he talked to people, and he talked, and he told them some stories, and he told them some other stories, and told them some gags, and then he just said, and close your eyes and sleep. And 98% of the people in the room went, boom, because he'd been pre-framing that entire conversation. He'd spent 20 minutes getting people into a nice, relaxed state and thinking about the right things, so that when he asked them something, boom, it happened. Extreme example. But that was just the sheer power of focus and a pre-frame in changing what people think about and what they feel. So most people do setups that are this big. Okay? Every so often somebody is really, really wordy and does one that's this big. They'll both work, but that will tend to work better than that. Long setup, short question, long answer. Short setup, long question with 16 subclauses, short answer. So do a long setup, ask a really short, sharp question, you'll get a really comprehensive, really expansive answer that you can dig into and have a real, genuine conversation about. That's the way it genuinely works. Okay? Now, you use those techniques, the ability to focus what somebody's thinking about, and the pre-frame, so that they're thinking about it before you even ask them any questions. And you are obsessed, it's not too big a word, you become obsessed with finding people's problems. Not just the superficial ones they talk about, but the cause of those problems, and the cause of those problems, and the cause of those problems. Like the Magnificent Seven, if you've ever seen the movie, you're not looking for the guy with the scars, you're looking for the one that gave them the scars. Yeah? In this context, you're not looking for the problems they're happy to talk about, you're looking for the cause of the problems that they don't ever want to talk about, because that's deeply uncomfortable. And that is where the deal is to be made. Yeah? Now, if you have a conversation that is purely focused on them, where you help them identify their problems, you help them identify the cause of their problems, you help them identify their deep desires and why they want them. And then you do this one thing, you won't need to worry about being ghosted or the endless follow-up cycle. And this one thing is really simple. You've probably come across it in different guises, under different names, but I always do one of two things. I either bam-fam or I back-fack. I either book a meeting from a meeting or I book a call from a call. Okay? Now, if I've genuinely engaged you, you are genuinely interested, you've got an unidentified problem. You've been digging, you've been thinking, you've been feeling it. You've identified a desire that you've not met yet. You've got excited about it. It's there. Okay. And I say, hey, it sounds to me like that there's definitely something we should be talking about, but I'm conscious, we're on a timeline. When's a good time to carry on with the conversation? When should we get in the diary? That next call isn't a follow-up call. I'm not circling back to find out how you're doing. That call is, hey, last time we spoke, we talked about this, 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 and this. And we agreed that you were going to go off and do this, and I was going to go off and do that. So I just wanted to carry on with the conversation. That's not a follow-up call. That's the next stage in the conversation. That's different. And I dropped a sneaky little one in there, by the way. The majority of prospects are way, way too passive. In the same way as an undisturbed prospect doesn't buy and a confused prospect doesn't buy, an unengaged and inactive prospect doesn't buy. If you can give your clients, or if you're in recruitment, if you can give your candidates little action steps, little bits of information that they need to find out, or little action steps they need to take before you're speaking to them next, it ties them into the conversation. The more we do about something, the more committed we become to it. Commitment isn't something you have, it's something you do. So those are the three aspects that I am obsessed by when I'm talking to my prospects or indeed my customers, where I'm trying to lock them in. I'm drilling down as far as I can to identify their core problems. I'm not a problem solver, I'm a problem identifier. Then I'm digging down to identify their real unmet desires. I'm showing massive amounts of interest on them and focusing where their attention is. I'm giving them a little action step to tie them into the process, and then I bam-fam. How many follow-up conversations do I have? How many follow-up calls do I do? None. Not or one. On a bad year, I'll do low seven figures. On a good year, I'll do high seven figures or even 8 figures. Personal sales, not my team, me personally. I don't do follow-up calls. Some of my deals take 2 or 3 or 4 conversations, but I don't do follow-up calls. I cannot remember the last time I followed up with somebody or just circled back to. What would be the point? If I didn't give you a reason to talk to me, if I didn't engage you, if I didn't focus on you last time, why the hell would you talk to me this time? Oops, you're ghosting me. If you're being ghosted, or if your follow-ups are going nowhere, the tough love response to that is, it's your fault. You made that happen. If you didn't give them something that was valuable, if you didn't give them a reason to continue the conversation with you, if you didn't give them a reason to talk to you more and spend more time with you, why the hell would they? They're busy, they've got lives, they've got other salespeople to say no to. Yeah. And that's my shtick for today. That's my thing. Okay. This is not a pitch session. It genuinely isn't. All I would say is, if you've been looking at me on social media, you must have been to find this webinar. I've been talking a lot about authority selling, which is a course that I'm not launching until the end of the month. If you have any interest in it at all, I've got 12 open places left on the waiting list. If there's no obligation to join the waiting list, there's no obligation to sign up if you're on the waiting list. But if you do join from the waiting list, there's also some additional goodies that you will get, such as 4 one-to-one coaching calls with me. And actually, that might not be an incentive, might it? Anyway, there's all sorts of other stuff that you get for joining from the waiting list. So if this is interesting at all, snag yourself a place on the waiting list, and then you've got the option. That would be my suggestion. If you simply go to Stephen, that's with a PH, -long.com, scroll down the page a little bit, there's a place there where you can sign up for the waiting list. I'll keep you in the loop and let you know when the doors are opening. And if it's not interesting, you're never getting this 45 minutes of your life back, so I'm hoping it was valuable. Whether you have or not, I've enjoyed it. I've had a good time. So if you want to hang on and ask me any questions, I'm perfectly happy to do that. I'll stay on for as long as you want to have a chat, or if you've got the option of doing it on the chat, please do. Otherwise, you can unmute and let's have a chat. And if you don't want to, because you're dashing off, I've stuck to my word. I finished at exactly 1:15. I said it'd be 45 minutes. I was 45 minutes. So if you want to carry on and have a chat, let's do that. If you don't, I've appreciated your time and presence. Thank you for that. Okay, if you're still on, let's have a chat. So this isn't gin, by the way. It's apple pop. I know it's a pint pop, but it's apple pop, I promise you. Oh, there we go. So any questions for anybody? If not, I will make my excuses and leave like a 1970s journalist. Ladies, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. You take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.